Alright, Shalom, Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all the honor and praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, Bahashem, Ruach HaKodesh. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, Reuben-Behold. Peace, salutations to the elect scattered abroad. This is the brother Barbers all here with a lesson, and Lord willing, it's edifying. And this lesson will be entitled, The Power of the Lord. Alright? Just going into the Lord is about to fully show his power, which he already is, right? You know, going into these prophecies, seeing these prophecies come to pass, right? Seeing the Lord gather up his elect, you know, us having the faith of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, us even coming back to the faith, you know, that's all the spirit and power of the Lord. But soon we getting ready to see the Lord fully take down this kingdom, right? Started with this man Esau, taking him out of power. All right. So this is the book of Romans 9, and I'll start at 15. For he said to Moses, I will have mercy on whom I will have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion. So then it is not of him that willeth, nor of him that runneth, but of the Most High that showeth mercy. For the scripture saith unto Pharaoh, even for this same purpose have I raised thee up, that I might show my power in thee, and that my name might be declared throughout all the earth. You see? So the Lord has allowed, you know, because Esau, you know, you can pretty much, you know, he's pretty much the modern day Pharaoh, right? So Esau being in rulership and Esau being really the, you know, the greatest, you know, kingdom, right? Out of all that the heathens have ran, you know, him being able to exalt himself up, you know, pretty much carnally, you know, he's untouchable, right? Especially for, you know, the nation of Israel. We're at a low state, and Esau, he's exalted, you know, high above, right? He has his technology, he has his weaponry, his military, right? You know, he's been able to rule for all this time, and you know, he's you know, you pretty much can't get to the elites without, you know, that divine intervention, without the spirit and power of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. So we're coming into a time where we're seeing these prophecies come forth, and as the elect is continuing to prophesy the downfall of this kingdom, the elect is continuing to wake up, right? We're seeing these different prophecies accelerate, right? The scriptures go into that the days shall be shortened for the elect's sake. And we're seeing that. And that's all through the spirit and power of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, you know. And even brothers, you know, having testimonies being, you know, delivered, right? You know, having dreams, you know. Just us being able to go out to the highways and hedges and, you know, endure the elements, right? You know, and endure all the, you know, afflictions that we go through. Right, you know, being exposed to danger, being protected by the angels, that's all showing the power of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, right? But we getting ready to see, you know, the Lord fully, you know, come back, you know, with Yahushai, right? The angels, you know, the chariots coming down to take this man out of power, man. You know, and that's how the Lord is going to show his power. You see. So the Lord only raised Esau up for a certain period of time just for him to be brought down. And that's how the Lord is going to show his power. All right. And it reads, verse 18, it says, therefore hath he mercy on whom he will have mercy, and whom he will he hardeneth. He's hardening Esau. You know, Esau is building this space force, has these different military crafts and things like that because he feels like he can take on Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. You see, you know, because the pride of this man, it's you know, it's up into the lifted up into the heavens, you know. So the Lord is going to bring this man down. All right, but the Lord is going to continue to harden his heart and cause him to fight. Right, 2 Ezra the 13th chapter goes into, you know, those that are fighting in World War III. You know, they're pretty much going to stop what they're doing and try to go against Yahushua and the angels, even though they're going to be scared as hell, you know, afraid. right, like we just read, the Lord is going to harden them, still make them, fight anyway, just to be destroyed. All right. And it says, thou wilt say then unto me, why doth he yet find fault? For who hath resisted his will? And nobody can resist the will of Yahweh by Shai. All right. And there's no such thing as free will. Everything that's going on right now was all preordained to happen. Right. So let's get into the next precept. This is the book of Revelation 6 and 4. And there went out another horse that was red, right? The horse represents power. That was red represents Esau, Edom, which Edom means red. And power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth. Power was given to him, right? So Esau wouldn't even be in the position that he's in today if it wasn't for if it wasn't for the Lord. You see? So he was put in a position to be the wicked. He was put in a position to have power and take peace from the earth, right? It's always war going on in the earth. Esau's always, dabbling in other nations' affairs, right? Taking their resources, Esau's always doing something to knock off, right, the peace that's on the earth. And it says, and that they should kill one another, and there was given unto him a great sword. And that was the blessing that was given to Esau in Genesis, the 27th chapter, the power of the sword, having the fatness of the earth, right? The different resources, right? America being the number one consumer. That was the blessing that was given to Esau. Job 9:24. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. The Lord made all this happen, So we're currently seeing what it's like to live in a wicked world, what it's like to when a wicked man is in rulership, right? When the physical counterpart of the spiritual demon Satan is ruling the earth, when everything is out of order, when nothing is when nothing is going in the form of righteousness, right? And that's what we seek, But this is going to be the last time that, Esau is going to be able to rule, right? Heathen will be able to rule. It says the scriptures going to Jacob is the beginning that followeth. So we getting ready to see Jacob, which represents the nation of Israel, rule. But first, this man has to be taken down, right? Babylon has to be destroyed, and the elect has to be delivered, right? A salvation, right, through the chariots. Right, all showing the power of Yahweh by Shai. All right. Let's get the next precept. It says, Isaiah 47:1, come down and sit at the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. Now, this is going into America, right? Virgin daughter of Babylon going into America, because America is spiritually known, right, as Babylon. Okay, according to the scriptures. Right? Not the Neo-Babylonian Empire, the daughter of Babylon, right? Virgin, because why? Because this nation hasn't been, really touched by like another nation in the form of war, ICBMs, things like that, right? America has just pretty much been able to rule with no real large major conflicts that happen unto it. But that's getting ready to change. Right? We're currently in the time of war, World War III. All right? And in the climax of World War III, Babylon will be destroyed. It says, there is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate. This place is no longer going to be the place that everybody going to or everybody look at to or go to change their lives, get money, American dream, the streets paved with gold. People are seeing America for what it truly is, right? The history of America, right? We can read in verse 2, take the millstones and grind meal and uncover thy locks. Make bare the leg, uncover the thigh, pass over the rivers. Thy nakedness shall be uncovered, yea, thy shame shall be seen. So everybody's seeing America for what it truly is. Nobody's being fooled by America's antics any longer, right? The scriptures go into that the nations drank of the wine of Babylon, and therefore they're mad. And we're seeing that. NATO allies starting to turn against Babylon. Nobody, pretty much everybody hates the small hats, right? Which is, pretty much an extension of Babylon, because they work closely together. They back, Babylon backs the small hat, and it's only going to continue to get worse, and we know that because it's according to biblical prophecy. It says, yeah, thy shame shall be seen. I will take vengeance, and I will not meet thee as a man. So this also goes into the power of Yahweh by Shemi-Yahushai. When Yahushua first came, right, he didn't come in the spirit of taking down the Roman Empire during that time, right? He had to fulfill his purpose, right, which was being the sacrificial lamb for the nation of Israel, in order for them to come back to the Heavenly Father, right? In order for the Israelites to be forgiven of their sins, you see? Showing the Israelites that, the way to receive salvation is through grace and through faith, right? And through the midst of that, Yahushua, of course, he had spiritual power. He performed miracles. He did, things of that nature, But now during this time, once he makes his return, he's going to deliver up the elect, and it's going to be a spirit of war against who? Against Esau, against the other nations, right? And a righteous standard is going to be established, right? So I'm gonna get one more precept. Oh no, Salakia. Let me get a couple more. Isaiah 63:1. Who is this that cometh from Edom, with dyed garments from Bozrah? This that is glorious in his apparel, traveling in the greatness of his strength. I speak in righteousness, mighty to save. And the answer is Yahushua. Yahushua is coming back for what, right? And what it says it that the eye that speak in righteousness, mighty to save. So Yahweh by Shemi-Yahushua is coming back to save the Israelites, right, and take down this this kingdom which is ruled by Edomites, Esau, the so-called white man. It says, wherefore art thou red in thine apparel, and thy garments like him that treadeth in the wine fat? I have trodden the winepress alone, and of the people there was none with me. For I will tread them in my anger, and trample them in my fury, and their blood shall be sprinkled upon my garments, and I will stain all my raiment. So Yahushua ain't coming back to play around, man. To hold everybody hand. No, Yahushua, if you're not a part of the elect, you're gonna get destroyed, right? And if you a heathen that survives, you're gonna be put straight into slavery, starting with you devils, starting with the Edomites. You see? And the blood sprinkled upon his garment, that represents the death and destruction that Yahushua is going to come back and inflict, right, on those the Edomites, right, and those that's ruling the kingdom, or this kingdom. It says, verse 4, it says, for the day of vengeance is in mine heart, and the year of my redeemed is come. And the only people that he's going to come back to redeem is the Israelites, because that's the only nation that has a relationship, right, that ever had a relationship with Yahweh Shemi-Yahushai. The scriptures go into that I have not dealt so with any other nation. So this is so the only nation that can be redeemed are the Israelites, those that the Lord made the covenant with, right, the first covenant with. You see? Matthew 24:30, it says, well, start at 29. It says, immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. So again, this is going into Yahweh Shai. All right, everybody's going to look up. He's going to crack the clouds and come back with, the angels, right, and the chariots, right. The chariots going to be shooting out laser beams. Yahweh Shai going to be, it's going to be a great sight to see, and we want to be part of that salvation. That's why we're laboring, making our bodies a living sacrifice, rehearsing the righteous acts, and ultimately just having faith that this will happen, that the Lord is going to come back and show this type of power. You see? Verse 31, and he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. So the Lord, so the greatest deliverance is going to be from Babylon, but the Lord is also going to have his elect scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. Remember, the prophecy is that the Israelites are scattered, right? The diaspora, right? Scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. So you may have some Israelites that look like, they're of the other nations, the speckled birds, But the bloodline goes back to Jacob. They have the spirit of an Israelite, Verse 32, it says, now learn a parable of the fig tree. When his branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, ye know that the summer is nigh. So likewise when ye shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. So we here. We see where we are at biblical prophecy. When you read up Matthew 24th chapter, when the time of wars, rumors of wars, pestilence, earthquakes, famines, the love of many waxing cold. These are the times that we in, man. And soon we're gonna get into, which we pretty much are in Jacob's trouble, but Jacob's trouble is gonna continue to intensify, right? Isaiah 4:1, people dying of famine, the MOTB being implemented, right? Made mandatory. We're in these times right now. We just seen that Elon Musk say, is gonna he's able to perform Jesus-like miracles, right? Cesare Borgia like miracles with the brain hip, He's pretty much saying that this is how you're going to be saved. This is your way of salvation, And if you take that mark, you're going to be fully in line with that beast system. You're going to be fully worshiping the beast system, and that's the ultimate betrayal of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. And at that point, you might as well just wait for your destruction, But again, even with that being said, like you not taking the mark, that you have faith, you believe that the Lord is going to deliver you, because everybody's going to be tried, right? The hour of temptation, everybody is going to be tried, right? Whether you are in the elect or not. The only difference is the elect is not going to take the C-hip, and the unbelievers will. You see? And it's going to be a power of the Lord that preserves the elect. Because there's going to be some, martyrs, But, even with the martyrs, they'll be first on the chariots, first in the kingdom still. But the Lord is going to put show his power in delivering brothers in the time of trouble, right? You may be surrounded by a bunch of martial law troops. Hey, the Lord will find a way for you to, maybe the bullets will go through your body. Maybe the Lord will put a super power on you to take them on. Maybe you haven't eaten days and you're walking around and, a rotisserie chicken might pop up. Maybe you maybe you have a canister of water, right? And, you're drinking it and, the water, it never, the bottle never gets empty. You just able to keep drinking the water, and the Lord is constantly refilling it. This is when we say spiritual power, this is what we mean, right? But the Lord performing miracles, this is what we mean, which us, being out to preach the word is a form of spiritual power as well. But you'll be able to physically see what the Lord is actually doing. When the Lord cracks the clouds, when the Lord gives brothers that power, man. That's the power of the Lord. That's the power of Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai. And let me get back to that first scripture, because it says his name is going to be declared throughout the earth, right? And just to go straight to the point, on verse 17 it says, and that my name might be declared throughout all the earth. His name. So you guys are saying that we don't have the name, that we don't have the name of the Lord. You guys are going off, man. You believe Esau, Edom, right, has the power to do away with the name of the Lord. That's completely off. The fact that we were even able to come back and know who we were as Israelites, right? But the Lord isn't able to, simply put his name back into remembrance, right? Put his name back, because it's going to have to be upon that name where we receive salvation. It's going to be that name, right, that delivers us from the enemy, from this, from Esau, right? From this captivity that delivers us from this captivity is all going to be done through one name, and you have to know those names. All right, Yahweh being the Most High, but Hashem is in the name, and Yahweh Shai meaning he delivers, right? He is salvation. That's Yahweh Shai, because Yahweh Shai is the key to our salvation. So you have to exalt those names. You have to uplift those names. You have to pray in those names. You have to prophesy in those names. All right, you have to stand firm in those names and not waver and shake. And it could be, you could say Jesus, you could say Christ, because those all go back to different idols, right? To false idols. Remember Acts 4:12, right? Also, you know what? And I'm gonna get this precept, and I'm gonna end it. Proverbs 8:10, the name of the Lord, Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, is a strong tower. The righteous runneth into it and is safe. That's the name of the Lord. So you have to know his name, right? All the prophets of old knew the name of the Lord. From Abraham, right? Apostle Paul, Ezekiel, Adam, right? They all knew the name of the Lord. All the way to this time, And just by saying those names and believing in those names, there's power behind those names. There's no power behind Jesus. There's no power behind Yeshua, right? There's no power behind any of these names that's not Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. So when the righteous preaches and prophesy and prays for those names, it says the righteous runneth into it and is safe. You see? So those under those names is how we're gonna be kept and preserved and saved, throughout these times, because these are very heavy times, man. And we need that covering, But that'll do it, with the lesson, and Lord willing, it was edifying. So with that, I'd like to give all honor, praise, and glory unto Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai B'Hashem Ra'ach HaKodash. Shalom.